All right. Maybe starting off, I wanted to quickly introduce who we are. I'll start with HPE. Philipp will introduce eGym. HPE, we are an independent private equity firm. We focus exclusively on growth equity investments. We don't do buyouts. We don't do venture. Pure minority growth partnerships with leading founders in technology. In Europe, we can invest pan-European. We really only use that mandate in Northern Europe, so German-speaking countries and North. About 75–85% of what we have done is in the German market. We're based in Amsterdam. We have about 500 million in capital under management. We will typically do investments ranging from 10 to 30 million for significant minority stakes. And I would describe us as real partners for the entrepreneurs and seek to help them with the significant growth stage that they go through, growing from about 10 million to hopefully 100 million plus in revenues. Typically under 100 employees when we start, several hundred to 1,000 employees, and the dynamics of an organization change. And that's something I would love to chat a bit more about. Philipp, maybe you can introduce eGym.
Sure. Yeah, hello, I'm Philipp. I'm the co-founder and CEO of eGym. We sell connected hardware and software to gyms in a way of automate a personalized user experience. So we bring an automated personal trainer basically to gym goers. We have experienced there is one problem for gyms, and that is that only the expert users are successful. And as we bring an automated personal training experience with our connected hardware and software to gyms, really everyone can be successful. And it is not only a great upgrade for the product for operators, but it also opens up a much larger market for the gym operators, because 30% of the global healthcare market are actually musculoskeletal diseases, and another 20% is diabetes. And so gyms can really have a meaningful impact on 50% of the largest market in the world, tackling musculoskeletal diseases and diabetes. And so that's why we are, on the one hand side, help gyms with our technology to provide a user experience that works for everyone. And on the other hand side, we sell subscriptions to corporations who represent the healthcare market, so their employees can access all those gyms and have really a positive health outcome for their employees.
All right, thank you. As you might have concluded from the fact that we're sitting here together on the couch, we invested in eGym. We're partners, and we've been working together now for 3.5 years. Knew each other already a little bit before then. During that period, eGym has gone through an amazing transformation. So just by way of sort of guidelines, we invested when the company was doing about $18–19 million in revenue. It was one-time revenues. This year, 3.5 years later, we are doing 85 million euros in revenues, about 100 million in US. And of that, about 35% is recurring revenue. The number of employees has grown a lot, from about 120, 130 when we invested to 400 roughly at the moment. We're growing at 50% and have now a much more international footprint. So we successfully went into the US market. And so I wanted to chat a little bit about how we as a team, how eGym has successfully gone through this growth phase.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember early on we had a long discussion, also already pre-deal, about management constellations, and together we basically then developed a plan how to progress with our management team. And in the meantime, we have basically in every single function a world-class leader who's extremely senior in that field, but on the other hand side, extremely aggressive and hungry, like founding teams are. And that has reduced the risk dramatically of our cooperation, because we are in a fast-growing environment, and then if every single leader first have to learn their role too, it's just too much of a risk. And I think our discussions have been here very fruitful. Another aspect was we have discussed a lot how to enter the US market, which is not an easy one, and also for us it was a bumpy road. We have made an acquisition of a software company in the US, and we basically acqui-hired a customer base, a fantastic team, and since we've done that and integrated it, also our former eGym-only products have started to grow rapidly in the US. Just maybe one factor here is in Q2 this year, we have done as much revenue as in the entire 1.5 years before. So that was another great aspect. And I think the third that I would like to mention is we have really started to understand better how important it is for a company to be predictable. And predictable, maybe in the past, for me, it was something boring. But now I've realized that when a company is predictable, you can make much more bold decisions, which is very exciting because you're standing on solid ground. And I think you had to show a lot of patience with me until I got there.
I was glad to do so, and of course the traction of the company was very helpful in that. And you mentioned sort of some of the discussions we had prior to our investments. One of the things we talked about was how to really build a functional team. Maybe not just, but certainly within the management team, but also with the board. And we discussed a few elements: trust, engagement, accountability, having enough conflict to tease out the right decisions, result orientations. Those are all things that we kind of use across our companies. And maybe you can share a little bit sort of how you use that within the company and what it did.
Yeah, absolutely. I can very well remember on our first board together, you recommended this book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team from Patrick Lencioni, and I can highly recommend everyone to read it. And when I read this book, it was very exciting because I basically read about the culture that I always wanted to create, but I was more operating it in an implicit way. And on this book, it was so nicely put and crisp that I was now also enabled to operate much more explicit within our organization what kind of culture I want to create. And one of the important pieces here is trust. Only trust, for example, allows healthy conflict, and that's exactly what you want to have in your discussions. And it's a good example how we worked together as partners on the board, really discussing how to evolve the company further.
Yep. Yeah. Great, and you mentioned this partnership at the board level, so wanted to address that a little bit more. When we invested, we also said, hey, let's take that and build out the board a little bit temporarily. Highland, one of the other investors, was chairperson for a while. I took over for a while, but we always had the goal of attracting a very experienced chairman also. Can you maybe address a little bit more how that partnership and the dynamics at the board level have helped you scale the business?
Sure, yeah. I think also what I now want to mention is also here the foundation is trust. And we have a lot of trust within our board, and that allows for really great and very open book discussions. I always look forward to our discussions. Also, I think that all our board members have a clear understanding of the different roles. So it's the management's job to, run daily operations and execute on the decided path. And it's the role for the board members to at least once per quarter pull the management up and kind of provide a balcony view and reassess, did our predictions, prove to be right? Do we need to make adjustments? And as there is so much trust, it worked really well to have great discussions. And every single time we have our board coming up, I'm really looking forward to great discussions. And I'm sometimes even curious what will be the outcome. And last but not least, I always look forward to our board dinner because I truly feel we're a real team, including we are real friends, led by our great chairman, George.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to maybe tell the audience a bit who George is and his background also? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I actually learned about George when I was still in business school, because there are lots of cases about, for example, the work he did as the CEO and chairman of 3M, as he led the company from a market cap of 60 billion to 150 billion. And it was really based on an innovation mindset. I then read the book again, also you recommended, from Chris Suk, about founders' mentality.
Founders' mentality, yeah.
There's an entire chapter about George, and I remember well then when we were looking for the chairman, I called our recruiter, hey, on Sunday I finally decided who I want to have as a chairman, and so please contact him.
Yeah, no. And part of what we had in mind there, so we have actually guided quite a few companies towards successful US IPOs, about 16 of them. And so we have experience with that and the positioning of it and sort of the requirements and also from an operational point of view, what to focus on. One of the challenges is it's a very different game than being a private company founder and CEO. And so we all agreed, let's get somebody like George on board to help the company, help the team prepare for that. And that maybe was a nice way to sort of close the conversation today. Can you maybe share a bit of thought about your ambitions and where you want to take the company and why you think that's the right path?
Sure, yeah. I mean, we are on a clear path to become the global market leader for connected hardware and software in the gym space, to really provide an automated personal training experience and making sure that every gym goer is successful. And that really allows us to also be on the corporate subscription side when it comes to corporate investments in activities as a benefit, but even more importantly as really improving health outcomes for the employee workbase. We are positioning there based on all the technology we own as ourselves as the high-end market leader, and we totally want to claim that spot and then work towards and grow towards going public and remain independent.
Yep. Great. I think with that, we would like to close our session. Very exciting for me also, the next one is another CEO and founder that we invested behind. So stay on board to listen to Florian Hübner from Uberall as well.